أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الصفا والمروة من شعائر الله فمن حج البيت أو اعتمر فلا جناح عليه أن يطوف بهما ومن تطوع خيرا فإن الله شاكر عليم. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone who's joining us for the week 3 Quranic calendar reflections roundup based on your reflections from QuranReflect.com. And of course, I'm joined here by Sheikh Fahim. And together, inshallah, we're going to read and explore and appreciate some of the best comments and posts and reflections that we've identified over the past week. So as always, remember that we are basing all of this on what is called the Quranic calendar, the global Quranic calendar. And just to refresh your memory about that, here it is. The global Quranic calendar is found at quran.com/calendar. And you can find, what is today's date in the Islamic calendar, and also in, what do we call it, the Gregorian, the other calendar, right? So May 2nd, of course, corresponds to 23rd Shawwal. So in our new system, this is called week 3 of the Quranic calendar. So there are 46 weeks between the previous Ramadan and the next Ramadan. So we're going to go all the way, week 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 46. And then it's going to be Ramadan again, inshallah. And in that time, we are going to read through the entire Quran in a language that we understand. And we hope engage with some of the resources that you can find on this site. So under each week, when it comes up, you would find here the opportunity to read online by clicking here. You can also download the PDF, which has some extra reflection points in there to help you along in your understanding. We have the Divine Book Club podcast, where we are reading through the text and sharing some thoughts and insights. I hope you're enjoying that so far. You can also have that just in audio format. Now with improved audio from week 3, because we bought some nice microphones which are fitting to the purpose of speaking about the Quran, and these reflection prompts. So what we're also inviting you to do is to go on to QuranReflect.com and share your thoughts. So Sheikh Fahim, why don't you help guide us through some of the ones that you've picked out? You and your team have been looking at the reflections coming in, and you've chosen these ones for us to have a chat about.
Yes, absolutely. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Ameen. Yes, I just want to give a shout out to Sister Ilham, Brother Basit, Samrit, who, mashallah, have suggested some of the posts that have come in under the bracket, or under the verses that we're studying, inshallah, for week 3. And the first of these is for Sister Latifa. And she says, I want to ponder on Allah's names in this ayah. And she's referring to verse 158, in which Allah Azza wa Jalla says, indeed the hills of Safa and Marwa are among the symbols of Allah. So whoever performs the pilgrimage or minor pilgrimage, let them walk between the two hills, and whoever does good willingly, Allah is truly appreciative, all-knowing. And she says, I want to ponder on Allah's names in this ayah. He describes himself as Shakir, the most appreciative, and Alim, the all-knowing. The ayah introduces the act of worship of going between Safa and Marwa during Hajj and Umrah. This isn't an easy journey for anyone, yet we go through such hardship purely for the sake of Allah, out of our submission to Him. On a personal level, I haven't had the opportunity yet to do either of the pilgrimages. However, this ayah stood out to me due to my own experiences of doing things to seek the validation of others and constantly feeling disappointed. I would often try my best at school, work, or even at home to go the extra mile. Most of the time, if my efforts were not openly appreciated or went unnoticed, resentment would build within me. This mindset caused me to become less helpful and more self-serving, since if the people I was trying to serve didn't notice me, there wasn't any point. Subhanallah. Only recently have I started studying Allah's names and found solace. I started to understand that Allah is Alim, the all-knowing, al-Alim. He knows my intentions, sees my actions when no one else does, which is so beautiful. Equally, he is Shakir, the most appreciative. Allah doesn't need our deeds, but no deed of ours goes unnoticed, and even for the smallest of deeds, Allah may elevate it to become the heaviest deed on our scales. With this understanding, I renewed my intentions and did everything to please Allah, only seeking His validation. Inshallah, one day, with this mindset, I hope to be able to complete Hajj and Umrah and make my way from Safa and Marwa, knowing that every moment of hardship is for Allah and Him only. Such a beautiful reflection in so many different ways, and I think there's a personal message there for everyone. As intention is a fickle thing, and it's something it can latch on to many different motives. We can have intentions to please others, and often they don't reciprocate or appreciate the struggle we go to achieve certain objectives, and we expect some validation from others, as the sister said. What I find really amazing about her reflection is that she hasn't experienced Safa and Marwa, she hasn't experienced Hajj, but she was able to put herself in this scenario whilst reading the Quran al-Karim. And I think that's a beautiful thing, to be able to picture what the Quran is telling you and to put yourself in there as an actor, as a as part of that environment that the Quran is talking about. And then, of course, she talks about how she's shifted from the mentality of doing things for the sake of people and then feeling disheartened, and now doing it for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jalla and feeling fulfilled. And it's a beautiful reflection.
And what I really liked about that was also the aspect of self-reflection, where that was kind of thought through and then expressed in some words, and we don't always find the ability to do that. Just to have a realization about yourself and realize where you're falling short and compare yourself to what the ayat are calling on you to do.
Right.
That's a real blessing if Allah opens your heart to reflect in that way, because it's one thing to look at the words and even, as you say, to go into the worlds of the Quran.
Right.
That is one type of opening and type of blessing. But if a person does all that and then never looks within and never has that introspection, then they could actually lose out on everything. They lose out on how the Quran is a cure. You can't really get the right cure if you don't know what your disease is, right?
Right.
I mean, maybe just reading the Quran and then all these things would be cured by the power of the Quran anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not discounting that, but the most meaningful kind of cure is when you actually know what it is that you're having to take, and then you take it in the right way and you apply it in the right way.
That's a profound point. Yeah, Jazakallah khair. That introspection is much needed when reading the Kalam of Allah Azza wa Jal. Jazakallah khair to Sister Latifa. There's a comment by Brother Rayyan Shafi on this one. He says, MashaAllah, this was a deep, heartfelt and powerful reflection on two of the names of Allah and their connection to Hajj and Umrah, as mentioned in this ayah. Jazakallah khair for sharing. May Allah give you the ability to complete Hajj and Umrah with the best intention and in the best of way. Ameen, ameen. We pray, Sister Latifa, that Allah Azza wa Jal grants you an opportunity to visit His holy, the Holy Kaaba, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, so you can perform Hajj and Umrah, bi'idhnillah. After that, we have a reflection by Sister Ansa. I hope I'm...
I probably Ansa, right? Ansa, like lady, right? And we had this the same sister, I'm sure, that we read last week.
Right.
The same bird. I remember this purple bird.
Unless that's like the picture of Hudhud. You never know. But yes, alhamdulillah, she has a reflection from verses 163 to 167. And what we've noticed, Dr. Saeed, and you would have also noted this, so mashallah, we have quite a few contributors on this verse, because it no doubt is one of the sort of remarkable verses of Surah al-Baqarah, which invites us to reflect. And she says in her reflection, and she's referring to verse 163 to 167, which says, your God is only one God. There is no God worthy of worship except Him, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, the alternation of the day and the night, the ships that sail the sea for the benefit of humanity, the rain sent down by Allah from the skies, reviving the earth after its death, the scattering of all kinds of creatures throughout, the shifting of the winds and the clouds drifting between the heavens and the earth. In all of this are surely signs for the people of understanding. Still, there are some who take others as Allah's equal. They love them as they should love Allah, but the true believers love Allah even more. If only the wrongdoers could see the horrible punishment awaiting them, they would certainly realize that all power belongs to Allah, and that Allah is indeed severe in punishment. Consider the day when those who misled others will disown their followers, when they face the torment, and the bonds that united them will be cut off. The misled followers will cry, "If only we could have a second chance, we would disown them as they disowned us." And so Allah will make them remorseful of their misdeeds, and they will never be able to leave the fire. And so in these verses, Sister Ansa says, water that purifies, nourishes, and gives life is not just for the earth to absorb and hold. It has a greater purpose that is facilitated by the winds and clouds to spread out in the land in order to give birth to life from that which was once dead. It is He that provides His creation with the ease of movement and growth to help the nourishment and expansion of nations across the earth. Like the ships that carry the provision from the earth, we must become vessels that carry the life of revelation to those whose hearts are dead. God, through His mercy, makes it easy for us to navigate and traverse the storms on this journey in the night and day. Like the winds and clouds that run their appointed courses, the prophets and messengers were sent to specific nations at specific times. He raised them from wherever He willed and sent them wherever He willed. Whatever the vessel, the message remains the same. It is a reminder that it is only He that has complete power and control over everything, that it is only He that is deserving of love, that exceeds our love for all that which is materialized through His provision. And it is only because of His love and mercy that He facilitated life specifically for me in its physical manifestation, wherever he chose it to be. Most importantly, He facilitated specifically for me to receive His revelation so that I may be guided. If I can internalize this and sincerely feel gratitude for guidance, then I will not hesitate to carry and share the life and light of revelation with the world around me. This also means not to withhold. This also means to not withhold or conceal any truths out of convenience and worldly gains. That this divine guidance and provision deserves to keep pouring like rain throughout the entire earth on all of mankind, and to not be kept from those who I don't believe are worthy. If I'm true to this, unlike those who will disown each other on the last day, He will certainly not abandon me when all of this is reduced back to nothing as it once was. So Sohaib, your thoughts on this post?
Well, so what was it that caused you to choose this?
So I think it was there seems to be a number of points of tadabbur in these verses, and Sister Ansa talks about the water and how it purifies and gives life, not just for the earth to absorb and hold, but there's that it has a greater purpose that is facilitated by the winds and clouds to spread out in the land in order to give birth to life from that which was once dead. It would appear to me that she is drawing many analogies from this to her personal life, and she's also relating the ships which carry goods and produce, and it's there for the ease of people. It's there to serve the people. She's relating that back to the prophets and the messengers. It would seem that she's also taking the phenomena of the journey in the night and day, and the winds and the clouds that run their appointed courses. She's making an analogy between those natural phenomena and also the fact that this is the same Creator who's also sent messengers and prophets to specific nations so that they can also fulfill their course, and Allah Azza wa Jalla has chosen their route for them, just like the way the ships navigate, and they end up taking their products to those.
So while the ayah is talking about the natural phenomena and the things that happen out in the world that we look at, we observe, we ponder on them, there's also a relationship between that and the sort of journey of life and the journey of revelation and guidance and versus misguidance. And so we can appreciate ayat sometimes on multiple levels. Well, I say
Right.
sometimes, maybe most or all of the time, we can appreciate them on multiple levels. What is sort of plain and obvious, and the key thing that we are supposed to take from it. But when Allah says this contains ayat, right, and this is for people who ponder, right? What's the ending of the ayah?
Yeah, in في ذلك الآية
يعقلون.
yeah.
Yeah. So we have to then engage our aql in that, right? Rather than just say, okay, yeah, I understand. I heard these things mentioned and I got the point. I'll move on to the next ayah, right? The point is there's many ayat inside this, and you will never be able to exhaust how many lessons there are in it. So we have to be ready to approach it from different angles and use the different lenses. If we want to use the 5 lenses of reflecting on the Quran, that's just a way of gathering these things together. But even that's not exhaustive of all the ways that we can ponder on Allah's words.
Yeah.
Shall we move to the next one?
Yeah, sure. I just want to raise the last point before we do, Sheikh Sohaib.
Sure.
I think she ties in together 2 phenomena quite nicely. She's talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's favors and the spectacles of the ship sailing and the winds and how they run its course and how Allah Azza wa Jalla sends down rain. All of this creates a deep appreciation in the hearts of believers and for those who contemplate. And naturally, that leads to an attachment and a love for their Creator, because the next verses talk about believers having an ardent love of Allah Azza wa Jalla. So I found that quite nice, and also the fact that she's certainly confident that inshallah on the Yawm al-Qiyamah she'll not be from of those who will be denied a second chance. So may Allah Azza wa Jalla accept your contemplation on this verse, Sister Ansa, and Jazakallah khair for sharing. The next verse that we have is for Sister Nadia L. And again, it's on the same verse, 164. I won't repeat the verse. And she says, a big criticism people have of religion in general is that it is based on blind faith. I remember watching a documentary of a self-proclaimed atheist who interviewed families over the faiths. When she questioned some of the practice of the Jewish tradition, she mentioned this point: the religion is just having blind faith. Interestingly enough, the family didn't really disagree with her on that either. In our faith, it requires us to reflect on our reality. There are many ayahs throughout the Quran that should make us pause and take a look at Allah's creation. We can't just be blind followers of this deen. If we truly follow it, Allah wants it. If we truly, we can't just be blind followers of this deen. If we truly follow it, Allah wants us to think and reflect over His ayahs, and that is something beautiful about this religion. I think she's really pinpointing us to that these are signs for a people who reflect and for a people of understanding.
Yeah, even the language of seeing and looking, right? So there's a difference in looking and seeing in English, a little bit of a difference, and like there's hearing and listening, right? So rather than just hearing something passively, we're called to listen to Allah's message and to listen to the Quran. And then when it comes to seeing, well, you can see things, but we're also told to look at and observe, and again, looking for the signs, looking for the meanings. And then, of course, to process that in our minds, whether I want to point up here or to the heart, because, a lot of the language also of the Quran is related to the heart as the vessel of reasoning and of feeling as well. So faith is obviously there, but the idea of blind faith, well, I'm not sure there's much. I have sympathy for that expression anyway in English. Even when we talk about blind following, of a school of jurisprudence, for example, we talk about taqleed.
Right.
Even the idea of blind following, I think, is not really indicative of what taqleed is.
Yeah.
Insofar as it is something that we might need to do as beginners and as people who are not qualified and specialized, but still we do it, ala basira. We still do it knowing what we are doing and based on evidence. Now, I might not understand the textual evidence that the scholars are depending on, but I also am checking out which scholars am I going to listen to and who do I find reliable and trustworthy in their character, in their knowledge, in their specialist training. And then when it comes to matters of faith as well, the meaningful faith is one which has gone through some inspection, right? So it's based on the evidences. So these ayat that we are reading and the ones that Nadia and others are pondering on here is saying, look at these signs. These signs are the reason that you should believe in Allah, that you should know that He is one, that you should know He is control of everything, that you should know that He is the only one worthy of worship, that you should know that His guidance is true, His judgment is true. It's not just because someone forced you, someone made you, or you were brought up in that kind of family, but Islam, Iman, is fundamentally something that we base on evidence.
Absolutely. I think as you say, the idea of blind faith, it has many connotations, but when it comes to our belief in Allah Azza wa Jalla and Iman, the Quran refers to guidance as being nur. يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور. Allah Azza wa Jalla takes believers out from darkness into light. And so, if anything, believers are required to understand and appreciate, the rational basis of the deen and why they believe what they believe, and then there has to be some level of appreciation and inspection, as Sohaib said. Jazakallah khairan.
So the next reflection doesn't have the ayah tagged. It's got a hashtag. But if I was signed in properly, I would go in here and do the tag for Sayyida Samia. But you can do that, inshallah, in your own time. So it's ayahs 204 to 206. So as per some mufassirun, the ayat refers to Akhnas ibn Shariq, who offered his vows to the Prophet ﷺ, but on the way back he destroyed the crops and animals of Muslims. So when we were reading it in the Divine Book Club episode, we actually didn't go into the sabab nuzul or the stories that are related as to who is referred to. Because these things, generally take a bit more time and also take you away from the generality of the statement that there are some people whose talk would impress you concerning this life, but then they go and cause corruption and so on. So this is even something which you can relate then to maybe some of the politicians of nowadays. I say some, but most. Well, in their hearts, their only intent is to serve themselves, and in this urge, they cause corruption. They're not at all concerned with the well-being of the people.
There's a general idiomatic phrase. There's an understanding that those who come from Scotland have the gift of the gab.
That's Ireland you're thinking of there.
No, I'm talking about.
But we do. We just don't brag about it.
But yeah.
So secondly, Islam brings compassion, and rahmah is like a river that doesn't distinguish, it flows and nourishes everything. Which I don't know if this is coming from the ayah as such. I'm not seeing the connection here to the ayah, but maybe it's just a point that the person reflecting is making in contrast. Because the ayah makes a contrast. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يَشْرِي نَفْسَهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ. There are some people instead who sell their own selves seeking the pleasure of Allah. And that particular ayah, I didn't mention it in the episode, but is related to Sayyidina Sohaib, not me, but the companion of the Prophet ﷺ, Sohaib al-Rumi. Mm-hmm. And it is said to have been revealed in connection with his journey and him giving up what wealth he had acquired in Mecca when he made the hijrah to Medina. So it's said to be revealed in connection with him. So it is a beautiful thing to think about those that the ayat were referring to, both the good people and the bad people. That helps us to contextualize and to grasp the meanings. But of course, when those people are not mentioned in the ayah, then the ayah itself is supposed to be taken, mostly on its generality, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So this was a reflection that came up a little bit before week 3, which is okay. But typically, of course, we are reflecting on the relevant week during the week, just as a way of encouraging us to stay together, right? But sometimes you might look ahead. So tell us about this one.
So this is a reflection that is based on the verse 215, in which Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, "Do you think you'll be admitted into paradise without being tested like those before you? They were afflicted with suffering and adversity, and were so violently shaken that even the messenger and the believers with him cried out, 'When will Allah's help come? Indeed, Allah's help is always near.'"
So the messenger here is not referring to Sayyidina Muhammad ﷺ, but some earlier messenger who is not specified by the ayah.
Right. It's a deliberate sort of ambiguity there.
Well, it's not ambiguous. It's not a Rasul, this Rasul.
Right.
I'm just pointing that out just in case someone misunderstands from the translation, which is ambiguous. But the translation that we used for the Quranic calendar, it says their messenger, right, but in brackets, just so that is a little bit clearer. But some of the translations are less clear, like this one.
Right. Here, Sister Shireen Mansour, she says, over 100 days of war in Gaza, it is all His qadr. It has been measured, it has been timed, it has been apportioned. Bi-idhnillah, with the permission of Allah, help is near, relief is near, victory is near, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is nearer. And then she makes a reference, predetermined events take place, none of which precedes or falls behind when its appointed time comes. And then she says, and all this takes place according to a definite plan, for God has a set measure for everything. And then there's a link to another reference. And of course, the other verses are also mentioned in Surah Al-Munafiqun, وَلَنْ يُؤَخِّرَ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِذَا جَاءَ أَجَلُهَا وَاللَّهُ خَبِيرٌ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ.
Yeah. So they're also linked to the post. So Shireen has rightly made use of these connections, and I think that she was guided in knowing those connections by that book of Imam Ghazali, where a certain point is being made. I don't know under which name of Allah, perhaps he was discussing it, but then he has mentioned these ayat that are related to Allah's decree, to His help, and to His nearness. Yeah, so these ayat, of course, have a tremendous role in providing that comfort and support. Not just comfort in the sense of putting you to sleep, but the reassurance that if you are steadfast and if you strive in the way of Allah, then the victory will come. It will come when Allah decides, and you are honored by the fact that He is going to grant that in the way that He pleases. And I think that this is something that we, you might have seen, occasionally people are recording clips, even in Gaza, they're recording these clips where they're reciting Quran, and the freshness and the energy and the vitality of their recitation is something else, because this is coming from hearts that are full of this yaqeen, right? Not the institute here, but this certainty of faith, which comes from they are seeing life at its most extreme.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we're in our coddled environments and comfort zones, we take these things for granted. But those people who are facing the most and struggling the most and suffering the most, oftentimes they're the ones who actually teach us what it is to have faith in Iman. We think that they're going to be shaken, and in fact, even the ayah that we were, is it this one that was being reflected on, or the previous one was no, it's this one, right?
Yeah.
So that certain people, they're shaken until they say this.
Yeah.
But so far from the people of Gaza, I haven't heard much of Mata Nasrullah, but rather they're reciting this ayah which contains the answer already. So they are more informed than that previous community who were saying, where or when is the help of Allah coming? They are more informed than that, and they're teaching us as well.
Absolutely, yeah. It's amazing how we see faith manifest in this environment, an environment where there's loss of life. There are limbs that have literally been scattered, in places, and yet the sumud, the patience that they have, the resilience that they have is something I think the entire world is witnessing right now, and they're asking, where's this coming from? We want to know where this is coming from. And what's interesting in this verse is Allah says, "Ala inna nasrallahi qareeb," that indeed Allah's help is always near. And we also have in the verses preceding that, not too long ago, in the verses of Siyam, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes himself as being very near. وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ, that I'm, if my servant was to ask about me, that I'm near. So Allah's victory is near, and knowing that Allah is near to, raising our hands and making dua to him, knowing that he's responding, knowing that he's witnessing all of this, no doubt sends, a sense of relief. Although Nasr may not have come just yet, just knowing that Allah Azza wa Jalla is aware and watchful of humanity's transgression against these people is sufficient for them. Jazakallah khair, Sister Shireen, for this beautiful reflection.
So the final one, and we just have a couple of minutes, is from Sister Amrit, one of our stalwarts and pillars of Quran Reflect.
I call her al-Qiwar.
Qiwar. You have to check in the dictionary that Qiwar doesn't mean something. Yeah. Okay, go.
Tafadhal, please.
So this is the ayah which is pertaining to intoxicants and gambling. They ask you about intoxicants and gambling. Say there is great evil in both, as well as some benefit for people, but the evil outweighs the benefit. And then there's, of course, more to the ayah, but I think the focus is on this part just now. This contains such an important lesson for us to recognize. Sometimes there can be benefits that come along with committing certain sins, but the evil is greater than the benefit. We can't justify committing the sin or belittle the sin just because there is some genuine benefit that can be obtained along with it. So I'm sure that we can think of other examples that are not, alcohol. Allah knows that the harm is far greater, so He forbade it for us. Sometimes the harm can be seen clearly and immediately. Other times it is not so easy for us to discern, but we put our trust in the one who always guides us to what is best. So then she's opening up the invitation to people, perhaps in the comment section, or under the post, or here on YouTube. But we're more likely to see it if you put it on QR. Like, go into Quran Reflect, and there you can share what reflections you have on this verse. What harms have you seen come from intoxicants and gambling to individuals, families, and society, so that we can reflect together, because Allah said that it contains great sin, right? So then it's not a tafsir question now, like, what is the meaning of sin? Well, the meaning of sin is well established, the meaning of harm is well established, the meaning of benefit is well established. That's the tafsir. After that, it becomes, how do we expand our appreciation of the verse? Now this is tadabbur and reflection. So that's where we all come in, and where modern science comes in, and sociology and economics and all these things come in, beyond what our great minds of the past have already said in their books, and the Quran translators have told us, what the ayah means in a basic sense.
Absolutely. And you can relate it to, circumstances that you're aware of. People who, just recently we came across a case where there's a brother who has sold his entire house, may Allah guide him, because he's been gambling. And so he's taken away the property of others, from his family, from his children. We're told that, again, not disclosing specific details, but, just to understand what the effects of gambling,
damage it does,
damage it does, and how there's consequential losses for other people as well. So apparently, to the extent that he's gone to his child's piggy bank, shook it, seen that it's got coins, and he's taken that as well. And this is, the Quran is making it very specific, that these are the harms caused, and it's coming from Allah Azza wa Jalla. And Sister Amrit points us to also having faith in knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's prescriptions he's the most knowing, and so we should have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's order and his injunctions. Also, there's something else quite amazing about this verse, that the Quran doesn't shy away from disclosing that there may be some good in these elements, this in alcohol or in gambling. And it shows how the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal, He's being objective about disclosing the nature of these things.
And then people are, of course, even sometimes Muslims who have shops and they're selling alcohol, they're selling lottery and scratch cards and gambling paraphernalia. And, because I need it, because we will not get profits otherwise. Profits with the F,
Right.
F for failure, right? So we will not, there's benefit. Okay, there's a worldly transaction, but imagine the sin that you are earning and the harm that you're causing.
Absolutely.
The harm that you're causing to your local community. It's no coincidence that when a community, when a certain neighborhood is suffering from deprivation, you see gambling shops popping up, like in large numbers on the same street. You can tell the socioeconomic status of the area by how many gambling shops there are and off licenses there are. That's not a sign of prosperity. That's a sign of evil. And as Muslims, we should not be the ones who are out there propagating the evil. Quite the opposite.
After that, not only is it evil that is propagated through these things, but also on a personal level, anyone who drinks will know that the liver function, they're literally disrupting their own biology that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given them. But anyway, that's a discussion for another time.
Inshallah, in the comment section of Sister Amrit's post is a perfect place for it. So we'll have to wrap up for our weekly roundup. Until next time, inshallah. And of course, get onto Quran.com/calendar. You can still read week 3's reading. You can still participate however you like. But from Friday, inshallah, we are now entering the week 4. The podcast is just getting finished off and it will be hot off the press. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel of Quran Reflect. And that way you can get these things before anyone else. Barakallahu feekum. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wassalamu wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.